All right, we're going to take a little break from the questions to do a speed round. So a little thing called overrated, underrated. I'm going to give you a couple topics in learning, and you tell me if they're overrated or underrated from your point of view. So we'll start with a perennial favorite from learning and development folks, the concept of ROI. Is that overrated or underrated?
So I'm nervous about what Amy might say to me on a break. I think it depends. So I think there's some things that really matter, and then I think there's some things you just got to do. So I found different appetite for ROI at Nordstrom, and so depending on the leader, you got to know what kind of matters. But there's some foundational things that just make sense, and if you have the right leaders in place, you just move. This is the believe and see. Like sometimes you just got to do it so you then show results, and sometimes you really do have to prove that it's working to create believers, so it depends.
So it's overrated or underrated depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah, and the situation and the organization and the culture and all that good stuff, so.
All right.
Sorry, can't do this.
All right, virtual reality. Is that overrated or underrated in your mind as a learning tool?
Underrated.
Why underrated?
I think that it's super powerful, and it's kind of on the cusp of being really big, and depending on your culture and the appetite and kind of where you are, it might make more sense. But it definitely is becoming more mainstream, and so I think that it's an up-and-comer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I sort of asked that question to a lot of CLOs about virtual reality or augmented reality or however you want to approach it. And the answer has always been something similar, which is maybe they'll say a little bit overrated right now because people are sort of focused on the buzz of it, but underrated in the long term, that it really does have that long-term potential to really transform a lot of things that we're doing. All right. How about the concept? How about the LMS? Do you think the LMS is overrated or underrated?
Really?
It's the technology everybody loves to hate.
So I don't know. I think it's evolving. I'll say we flipped our LMS at Dunkin'. It was a really big deal, and it made a huge difference. That was almost 10 years ago, and now, the LMS is going to be the back end of everything, and no one's really even going to know that it is there. Mm-hmm. So I would say it's maybe overrated.
All right,
I got one. Anybody out there?
I got one last for you. I should have told you you could pass on any of these.
Well, thank you very much. It's a little late.
So, all right, the Amazon shopping experience, is that overrated or underrated?
Okay, now we're really getting it. I'll pass on that one. No, I would just say, did you say the Nordstrom shopping experience? Because that is definitely underrated. It's amazing.
Well, so talk about that. So, I mean, nice pivot, by the way.
Thank you.
So talk about that. So Nordstrom, though, I mean, it's built its whole brand on this in-person experience of the shopper in a store. How do you translate that to something that is online, that is almost by its very nature impersonal?
Yeah, so we're having a lot of discussions around that, and just how we're pulling the thread between the in-person experience and the digital experience. And we were just actually talking about the opportunity to shop online, fill up your basket, and then show up at a store and try stuff on and buy it or not with the reserve in store. And I'm really not doing a commercial, but it's really cool. I mean, it is. We're talking about our kids. Like, wouldn't it be great if they filled up they wouldn't take us 3 hours to shop. And it depends on your lifestyle. So we're really looking to meet customers where they are, and also just being really true to who we are, which is a fashion authority. So.
All right, so we got a few more minutes. So we talked about your background, we talked about your current work at Nordstrom. I want to look ahead now and sort of, if you could put on your future goggles and sort of say, as you look at the learning role, what do you see as the greatest opportunities for people like you who are in learning leadership roles?
Yeah, again, it came up in the morning questions, but I think it is about how do we keep up and keep relevant. And for me, what I'm thinking a lot about, and we're talking a lot about, is around how we become more of an overall HR resource and advisor, and not a learning person, which and a lot of that has to do with how our organization's changing and what are the OD skills that we can pull. And I'm biased because I love that stuff, but I think it's really true. Because in order for us to keep up, and especially in the retail space, but I would say, in most industries, how the customer's changing, and then how organizational structures and the organization changes, and then how do learning teams kind of fit into that overall people infrastructure. We're really relying on a lot of our OD skills to keep up and be agile, and then at the end of the day, it has everything to do with the people you have and the teams you have, and being more consultative and less fixing problems. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and one of the other things you mentioned when we talked a while back was also thinking much more like a marketer from a learning standpoint. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Yeah, again, I am a learning junkie. I think the learning organization there's a lot of synergies between marketing and how marketing looks at customers and how we think about employees, and I think that will help us stay relevant and not kind of live in that tower that becomes irrelevant. So.
All right, so last question for you. What's the best career advice you ever received?
Say yes. Just try stuff. I mean, whether it's moving to different jobs that you didn't think, that your gut's kind of telling you that I should do this, but I'm a little bit, I'm nervous, but just take the risk and say yes. And I also just follow good people. I think it has everything to do with the team that you work with and the people you work for. So that's the best advice I've gotten.
Yeah, great. Well, join me in thanking Jesse for getting us started this morning.